Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here for thedailysheeple.com, and this is your news shot. So to John Rappaport's website we go, nomorefakenews.com. What a great blog post he put out there today. Fluorides, the atomic bomb, and fake news. I couldn't think of three more tantalizing subjects to talk about on this Friday. It says, faced with toxic fluorides destroying food crops, animal and human life, and with lawsuits piling up, atomic scientists decided they couldn't distract the nation by promoting fluorides as a beneficial tooth treatment. He says, occasionally I reprint this article I wrote some years ago during research on toxic chemicals pervading the landscape. I used to send this piece to mainstream reporters, but eventually gave that up as a bad bet. They're dedicated to fake news, and now they're losing control over the public consciousness. Losing badly, by the way. Indeed, independent media are in the ascent, and rightly so. In 1997, Joel Griffiths and Chris Bryson, two respected mainstream media journalists, peered into that abyss, and they found a story about fluorides that was so chilling it had to be told. The Christian Science Monitor who had assigned the story actually never published it. Their ensuing article, Fluoride, Teeth, and the Atomic Bomb, had been posted on a number of websites. Author Griffiths told John that researchers who study the effects of fluorides by homing in on communities with fluoridated drinking water versus communities with unfluoridated drinking water miss a major point. Studying the water is not enough. Toxic fluorides are everywhere, and they're used throughout the pharmaceutical industry in the manufacture of drugs, and also in many other industries like aluminum and pesticide. Now, here's some of the major points out of the Griffiths-Bryson article. Griffiths discovered hundreds of documents from the World War II era. These included papers from the Manhattan Project launched to build the first atomic bomb. Now, Griffiths and Bryson write this, quote, fluoride was the key chemical in atomic bomb production. Millions of tons were essential for the manufacture of bomb-grade uranium and plutonium for nuclear weapons throughout the Cold War. The documents reveal that fluoride was the most significant health hazard in the U.S. A-bomb program for workers and for the communities around the manufacturing facilities. Now, this is a quote from the article. It says, much of the original proof that fluoride is safe for humans in low doses was generated by the A-bomb program scientists, who had been secretly ordered to provide, quote, evidence useful in litigation against persons who had been poisoned by fluoride and would sue for damages. The first lawsuits against the U.S. A-bomb program were not over radiation. No. They were over fluoride damage. This is according to government documents. Now, A-bomb scientists were told that they had to do studies which would conclude that fluorides were safe. The most widely reaching study done was carried out in Newburgh, New York between 1945 and 1956. The secret op? Called Program F. The researchers obtained blood and tissue samples from people who lived in Newburgh through the good offices of the New York State Department of Public Health. Now, Griffiths and Bryson found the original and secret version of this study. Comparing it to a different sanitized version, the reporters saw the evidence of adverse effects from fluorides had been suppressed by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. Other studies during the same period were conducted at the University of Rochester. Unwitting hospital patients were given fluorides to test out the results. Here again, we see evidence of government testing on people without their consent. And this time, fluoride. Now flash forward. Enter Dr. Phyllis Mullenix, the head of toxicology at Forsyth Dental Center in Boston. In the 1990s, Mullenix did a series of animal studies which showed that, as Griffiths and Bryson wrote, fluoride was a powerful central nervous system toxin. Now, Mullenix applied for further grant monies from the National Institute of Health, but she was turned down. And she was also told that fluorides do not have an effect on the central nervous system. But Bryson and Griffiths uncovered a 1944 Manhattan Project memo which states this, quote, clinical evidence suggests that uranium hexafluoride may have a rather marked central nervous system effect. It seems most likely that the fluoride component, rather than the uranium, is the causative factor. So, just in case they say, well, it's uranium, of course. Of course it's got a problem with central nervous system. Yeah. No, the science behind this memo states specifically that it has to do with fluoride and not the uranium. The 1944 memo was sent to the head of the Manhattan Project medical section, Colonel Stafford Warren. Warren was also given the okay to do animal studies on fluoride's effects on the central nervous system. He immediately did give his approval, but records of the results of this approved project are missing. Most likely, they're classified. Now, who was the man who made the 1944 proposal for a rush program to study the central nervous system effects of fluorides? Well, Dr. Harold Hodge, who coincidentally worked on, the Manhattan Project, and who was brought in to advise Mullenix 50 years later at the Forsyth Dental Center in Boston as she studied the central nervous system effects of fluorides. He came in and advised Dr. Mullenix. Now, who never told Mullenix of his work on fluoride toxicity for the Manhattan Project? Well, Dr. Harold Hodge never said anything to Mullenix about this. Was Hodge brought in to look over Mullenix's shoulder and report on her discoveries? It turns out that Hodge, back in the 1940s, had made suggestions to do effective PR promoting fluoride as a dental treatment. So his presence by Mullenix's side all those years later was quite possibly an agent assigned to keep track of her efforts. And so do you hear what's going on here? Interestingly enough, build an A-bomb, forget the toxic fluoride consequences, bury the fluoride studies, and then twist the studies. And more on Hodge. In 1944, a severe pollution incident occurred in New Jersey near DuPont's plant in Deepwater, where the company was trying to build the first A-bomb. A fluoride incident. Farmers' peach and tomatoes crops were destroyed. Horses and cows became crippled. Some cows had to graze on their bellies. Tomato crops, normally sold to Campbell's Company for soup, were contaminated with fluoride. The people of the Manhattan Project were terrified of lawsuits and ensuing revelation about the toxic nature of their work. A heads-up memo was written on the subject. Its author? None other than Harold Hodge. Among other issues, he reported on the huge fluoride content in the vegetables shown growing in the polluted area. Also, the high fluoride levels in the human blood. The farmers, of course, began to bring lawsuits, which was a big PR problem. But the lawsuits were settled quietly and for pennies on the dollar. Harold Hodge ended up writing another memo. Get this, quote, "Would there be any use in making attempts to counteract the local fear of fluoride on the part of the residents near the A-bomb facility through lectures on fluoride toxicology and perhaps the usefulness of fluoride in tooth health?" Griffiths and Bryson write, such lectures were indeed given not only to New Jersey citizens, but to the rest of the nation throughout the Cold War. This was the launch pad, my friends, for fluorides as a successful dental treatment. Now you know why promoting toxic fluorides as a dental treatment was so important to government officials. Also, as a footnote, in Stanley Kubrick's 1964 film, Dr. Strangelove, Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper rails about the destruction of fluorides that are wreaking havoc on the, quote, pure blood of pure Americans. Of course, General Ripper is fleshed out as being a crazy right-wing fanatic. He's ready and willing to start a nuclear war. How odd. Apparently unknown to the Dr. Strangelove scriptwriters, fluorides were, in fact, very toxic and were an integral part of the program that created the A-bomb in the first place. Very interesting part of history that a lot of people don't know. And a lot of sound science to back up just how toxic fluoride can be. And here we have it, pervasive in our society, not just in the water that we drink, and the toothpaste that we use, but also, interestingly enough, the major ingredient in a lot of the serotonin reuptake inhibitors and the antidepressants that we see coming out of Big Pharma. Fluoride is a major component of that. So do a little research. If you don't believe me, check this study out. I will put the link to this article below and the great work of John Rappaport over at nomorefakenews.com. I'm Joe Joseph. This was thedailysheeple.com's News Shot. Feel free to comment below and visit our website at thedailysheeple.com. Hashtag Wake the Flock Up. Have a great day, everybody.